And welcome back to the Constitutionals Podcast. I'm your host, Chad White. If you didn't know, this is the premier podcast for the website, simplescomedy.com. Like I just said, it's a website. Go there, turning myself up in the in the links, and now realizing that I set the microphone way too low, and here it comes up. Adjusting it, narrating everything I do so that people understand that this show gets as much love as it possibly should. And here we are. Let me see. Okay, yeah, just had to make sure. Welcome back to the Constitution Podcast. This is episode 156 of the show. Still as loose as ever. Still as good as ever. We are here on last Thursday in April, recording a show that should not exist. and you know what? So far, I'd say we're doing pretty gosh darn well. Listen, let me pull up a timer because I obviously don't have a timer set up or a stopwatch. There we go. There we go for this segment. I don't have anything in here that really needs to be done. And yet here we are recording yet another show. We're in month 3 of this coronavirus pandemic. And so far, it is still going. We got Georgia's coming loose in this lockdown. Atlanta has gotten a lot more packed. People are out. Truly, I can't lie. I was out this past Saturday hanging out in the park with my friend who just moved here and his roommate. And we were hanging out in the park. And we hung out all afternoon. And then I got home at like 1:36, and I woke up on Sunday and I went immediately because I had to walk home. And it's not that far, but I did have to take a lot of public stuff. And I got home and I woke up around 9 o'clock on Sunday and I went, oh my God, why did I do that? That is the dumbest thing I could possibly do, is to hang out with a bunch of people. And then the park was packed, is to hang out with a bunch of people, hang out with these other people, to be in a group. And to touch people's dogs and to pet people's dogs, and just to be around these people. And I felt like I thought I could die. I could get this coronavirus. I could pass away. Of course, nobody would know because I don't text people, and B, I live alone, so it'd probably be like 2 weeks before anybody. I could die in 2 weeks. And then it would be another 2 weeks before anybody found me. Sad but true. All right, let's get started. I have a lot of stuff to talk about. First up is, this one's coming from Variety. It's talking about how Frid by Brian Steinberg. I don't know why I introduced it in the weirdest way possible. It is Trevor Noah's Daily Show will expand to 45 minutes. So there has been, ever since the Colbert ended his Colbert show, and I feel like I'm bending over to lean into the mic, and you shouldn't bend over to do anything unless you're at the club and you're dancing with somebody. You bend over, touch your toes. Bend over to the front, touch your toes, like the song says. And so ever since Colbert left the Colbert Show, which I believe was in 2000. He went from 2006 to 2011, maybe? Let's see. Colbert Report. That was 2005, 2014. I was way off. It feels just like 2 years ago when he started getting good at the CBS show, The Late Show. So he left. And Comedy Central, obviously, that's a good time slot to be behind, even when Trevor Noah, when the little white liberals weren't enjoying Trevor Noah after Jon Stewart left, and they weren't. Then it became apparent that there's got to be something has to fill that spot. And so Comedy Central has tried for years to do that. They did it with the Nightly Show, which they canceled after 9 months, right before the election. They did it with David Spade's show, Lights Out, which was canceled. I like David Spade. He's a very funny guy. It's a show called Rules of Engagement that he starred on with Patrick Warburton and Oliver Hudson, Bianca Kalick, and Megan Price, I believe that her name is. and truly one of my favorite sitcoms. It's so funny. It should not have existed because it was not it was on CBS. It should have been canceled so many times, and it didn't get canceled until it got 100 episodes. That's what should have happened to Happy Endings. Anyway, you get me started on Happy Endings, I'll talk for an hour on Happy Endings because I love that show. So they've been trying to, and then they tried it with the President Show, which thank God didn't last longer than however long it lasted. And then they tried it with Jordan Klepper's show, and but that was during an era of time in 2017 when the Jordan Klepper show. Let's see, Jordan Klepper show. That show aired and is called The Opposition. And that show aired for maybe, I won't even say a year, 2017. And it had one season, 2017 through 2018. So he did have one season with 149 episodes. And they treated it like it was The Daily Show. They treated it was basically a new age version, a new version of the Colbert Report, where we had this Alex Jones composite, just like Colbert was a composite of a Fox News host, and he was doing the now contemporary Alex Jones things. If you don't know who Alex Jones is, you're stupid. Just read the news. He's a very bad and racist man. But that show didn't really strike a chord with the audience because we have a president of the United States who is, what is that noise? Oh, you know what? It might be Mission Impossible. I don't know if you heard that. There was a noise that came across the mic. I did leave Mission Impossible 4 on in the other room. It's on FX, and I said, I love this movie. I sat down, I watched it for a little bit, and I said, all right, time to record the show. I love Mission Impossible. So good. Mission Impossible Fallout is one of my favorite movies of all time. It is one of the best movies ever. I've seen it so many times. That and La La Land, and truly amazing how many times I've seen those movies. And the Simpsons movie, which is crazy. crazy amount of times. Anyway. So that show didn't strike a chord. But now the Daily Show is going to be extended, especially, this is very important of being in coronavirus quarantine time. The Daily Show is going to be extended, and after they canceled Lights Out with David Spade, Daily Show is going to be extended about 15 minutes to 11:45. Then, after that time period, they're going to fill it with South Park and other shows. Late night is really being stretched to, I was going to say thin, but that doesn't make sense. And then, because it's not being stretched thin. And then, I was going to say stretched to a T, but that doesn't make sense. Any Hoosers. Late night is really working around this coronavirus because I think every show, and I have this theory. Every show is basically on, with the exception of Hassan Minaj's show on Netflix. I have this theory. Lily Singh's show, Little Late with Lily Singh, has been airing new episodes for, I don't know, the past 2 months. Where have we been for the past 2 months? We've all been locked down. Conan, Colbert, Kimmel, Fallon, Myers, and even Corden. None of those people started, and Samantha Bee. None of those people, and John Oliver, and Daisy Samiro, none of those people started airing shows from their homes until 5 weeks ago, 4 weeks ago at most. And so that's about a month. All right, a month and a little over a month. Lily Singh's show is still airing new episodes from the studio with an audience. My theory is, and you gotta be wondering, how's that happening? My theory is that they bulk shot, because that show comes on at 1 o'clock in the morning or 1:30. My theory is they bulk shot a crap ton of shows, and they already did this. All right, because that show is not topical. Her monologues are not topical. The games aren't topical. The guests are barely topical. My theory is they bulk shot, and it's only half hour long. They shot like 20 episodes, 20, 30 episodes, and they're doing Monday through Friday. So I believe they shot all those episodes and they're just releasing them still. Because I searched her Twitter, I searched the YouTube, I searched all that stuff, I searched all the relevant stuff. They're all talking about being stuck at home. Or they're not talking about the work at all. They're not talking about the job. They're not talking about the show. So I guarantee that they bulk shot the show. And and now they're releasing episodes. So we'll see what happens when they run out at the end of May. We'll see if that show comes back. Because I know NBC bet on her, but I don't know. Like, I think that show is too millennial for its own sake. This next story comes from The Atlantic, written by Hannah Georgis. Truth be told, I only skimmed over this story, and today at work I was like, I should freshen up on these stories, but I didn't. But the gist of this one is, it's called "The Problem with Celebrities Urging Fans to Donate During the Pandemic." The gist of this is, written by Ms. Georgis, is saying that people are, laid off. I had a reporter friend who just texted me. She's going to be furloughed for a week. I wonder if that obviously affects her wages, but just for that week. And she's a reporter, so but she's going to be furloughed. A lot of people are furloughed. But now we have, speaking of late night, late night shows are asking, hey, donate money. People can't eat. Donate money. And then you've got, other famous people going, hey, donate money, donate to all these causes that have suddenly come to the forefront. Excuse me. And she gives a specific example of Ashton Kutcher and Mila Kunis, a famed couple that they are, talking about their wine. They have a new product called Quarantine Wine. It's a Pinot Noir, $50 for 2 bottles. 100% of the profits will be donated. Not everybody has the money, and obviously you don't have to do this, but not everybody has the money to do it. Because I gave some money, but that's money out of my, and it was to No Kids Go Hungry, because no one was talking about that one at the time, but now everybody's talking about everything. But now these mega rich people are talking about, hey, give money here. You have to give money here, and it's kind of difficult because not everybody can do that at this time, especially if you have lost wages, especially if you don't have the money to give. And then there's going to be talking about a pay-per-view rap battle between Dr. Dre and Diddy. So, I mean, it's just very difficult that famous people are saying do these things when you kind of can't at some point. And then, same thing for, not going outside. We just talked about the show. I love The Daily Show. It's one of my favorite late night shows. Trevor Noah is one of my favorites. But at the end of a lot of his episodes, he's always going, stay home, don't go outside. And I think, well, some people have to go outside. I have to go to work. I have to go to the office. Some people need to go out for walks. So people need to get out of their homes and do things. Not go to the park and hang out with a bunch of people around you. I'm not kidding. There's at least 150 people at this park. 100 people at the park. Something big's happening. Mission Impossible. So people have to go outside. And I think at some point, it's got to be disingenuous for you to go, okay, stay inside, don't do anything, don't touch anything, and clap for your frontline workers. At some point, it's just got to stop because you can't. People are going to have to go outside. I'm not one of those people who was protesting. Stay-at-home orders are bull crap. Like, no, that's insane. But if I want to go for a run, I want to go for a run. And I do every Saturday morning. So if you want to kill me, that's when you do it. But you don't know where I run. So there you go. And then the one more thing I want to hit before... Oh, you know what? I don't know if I have time for this. One more thing I want to hit before the break. The Simpsons. This is very sad. Over on the AV Club, they have been covering The Simpsons for as long as I can remember. And there's one writer that covered the majority of it. His name is Dennis Perkins. And I hate critics and I hate reading reviews, but there's one review that I basically read every single Monday morning, and it's the Simpsons recap over at the AV Club, written by Dennis Perkins. Now this guy, I think, is a talented writer. I think he is very jaded. against current Simpsons and current SNL, because that's what he reviews: current Simpsons, current SNL. You know, he's very harsh on on both shows. But you know what? I respect him because he's a talented writer, and you know, over the past couple of weeks, I just like kind of tapered. Well, not a couple of weeks because they haven't aired for a couple of weeks. A couple of months. I've just kind of tapered off reading his reviews because I said I just don't need that kind of negativity in my life. And you know, this past episode was written by Pete Holmes, one of my favorite comedians, and it's a two-parter. And so I said, oh, you know what? I'm going to check out Dennis Perkins' review of this. And then turns out I'm reading the review, and he says that Dennis Perkins says it is the website's last review, like except for special episodes here and there, like the Treehouses of Horror and maybe the Christmas ones, you know, season finales, season premieres, you know, like the important ones. And so now it sucks that AV Club they said the readership has gotten too low, and maybe the parent company has something to do with it. The parent company is Geo Media, and they suck. They don't control me, so I can talk straight smack about them and AT&T. Because I just got another job denial from Warner Media, who is owned by AT&T, which is owned by AT&T. And it stinks. And it stinks that a good column is going away because, you know, the daddy company says it. You know, I mean, and The Simpsons is still relevant. They still get decent views and all that stuff. All right. Well, listen, we're going to take a break. And we come back. We have more stuff to talk about. All right. We're coming back in 3, 2, 1. And we're back. I didn't do anything important. I just got up, I turned the camera back on, and just did this. All right, let's get back into the second half of this episode. Listen, we're going to talk more about The Simpsons. I don't care if you like The Simpsons or not, but we're going to talk more about them. This comes from The Hollywood Reporter, written by Eric Gardner. Eric with a Q. Don't like that. Use a C. Maybe a K if you need it. Eric, you tramp. Or if you're, I don't want to say anything. Eric, you are a nice person. Fox says discovery about Simpsons composer culminated in firing. So you probably won't know this. About 3 years ago, The Simpsons, at this point, 27 years old, had fired, or maybe 28. They're in 31 right now, so 28 years old. Fired Alf Clausen, who's been a longtime composer of The Simpsons. So if you listen to the music of The Simpsons, you'll notice that it had, much like if you like Family Guy, they had big orchestral soundtracks, and it was big music. He was fired, and he was to be replaced with, because orchestras cost money, you have to use real instruments and all that stuff. He was to be replaced with what essentially would amount to is beat sequencers and ways to make the music digitally instead of using live bands and stuff. And so he was fired. He was, I believe, in his 70s, and he's an older gentleman. And today this week we have some new information on the firing. It turns out that The Simpsons might be, or the showrunners and producers might be kind of in the right for firing him, not because to save a buck, but also because that Clausen had apparently been shirking his duties and passing it off to other composers, unbeknownst to the producers. So according to an amended complaint that Clausen filed earlier this month, he was not only let go because of his advanced age, but also due to a perceived disability. The composer revealed he had been diagnosed with Parkinson's. In the filing, Clausen also attacks Hans Zimmer, whose company replaced him on the show for creating Simpsons music, quote, inferior in quality, depth, range, and sound, yet stylistically similar in substance. Truth. All right, I'm going to say this once. I've watched the show from the very first episode, all the way up until this very last episode that aired this past Sunday. The past couple of years, if you have listened to the music, you do notice a difference. However, I would not say inferior. I would just say a little bit more lively, a little bit newer. At the time, the series considered replacing Clausen in 2011. Clausen's large live orchestra with synthesizers and computer-generated music. But Clausen held on to his job, which paid him about $12,000 an episode plus royalties. Then there was an episode that was a two-parter called The Great Fatsby, where it involved it was a Burns story with Homer involved a little bit, and it needed a rap soundtrack essentially. What happened was that in 2016, when they were working on the episode, Jim Beans, who's one of the producers from Fox's Empire, was called in to do some of the music, or all of the music, and do composer for the hour-long episode. And but Clausen still did much of the work. And then turns out producer James L. Brooks from The Simpsons, he did not like what he was hearing. Same goes for Richard Sakai, who's been a longtime producer of The Simpsons. He says that Brooks questioned whether Clausen was the right person to prepare rap music and questioned his work more generally. This is when Sakai learned that Clausen had been passing off his work to his son, Scott Clausen, and he believed his unauthorized delegation was unacceptable. He called in Al Jean, showrunner Al Jean, and told him that Clausen had been delegating his composing work. He conveyed to me that he was surprised and disturbed as well. Then they all brought it up essentially to each other. And they discussed how Clausen was having others do his work, and then Sakai said we decided we can improve the music on the show by replacing him. And it gets kind of in the weeds there, but I mean, obviously you have to see it from both angles if you're going to be an impartial jury. But initially Clausen said years ago this was an age thing, and now in this suit he's saying, oh, age, disability, and all this stuff. And then the producers are just in the suit now. They never spoke about this. They just kind of said, hey, it was time, and now it's being replaced by Hans Zimmer. Maybe this is why Hans Zimmer stopped doing Star Wars movies. Isn't that true? I think he stopped doing Star Wars movies. I don't know. Or that's John Williams. Never mind. I don't know. Who does things anymore? It sucks that this had to happen like this. How long have we been going? But I mean, I think again, two heads about this. I don't really think anyone. I mean, who's at fault here? Because if he was passing off his work, I mean, I guess it could kind of be an age thing because they got Hans Zimmer and his company, and they were just trying to save a buck. There were pay reductions around that same time, around the same year that he was fired, because Fox was just like, take pay reductions, and they said okay, and the voice cast took pay reductions. So yeah. All right, and the last thing I want to talk about is NBC Universal, which is a movie company and corporate company, is having a little bit of a spat with AMC, American Movie Corporation. That's not true. That's not the name of AMC. Oh, there is a thing I wanted to look at called commercials during the pandemic. Let's take a quick look at that. Oh, this is from The Atlantic, written by Amanda Mole. It's talking about how companies like Burger King and Forever 21 and State Farm and Apple, just a bunch of companies have somehow made these, in the time that everybody was put in quarantine or stay-at-home orders, they've made these increasingly creepy commercials about staying at home and how this is like a quote-unquote new normal and all that stuff. And it's insane how they put these what she calls a pandemic dystopia. How they put these commercials out. Crazy. And actually, I think that might be the title of this episode, Pandemic Dystopia. I like that. It's a wonderful piece. Definitely check it out. Amanda Mole at The Atlantic. She's one of my favorites, writing over there for that periodical. But I'm sorry I didn't get a chance to talk about it, but we got to talk about this really quick. Also, no one wants to hear me talk about ads anymore. I've done so many episodes of the constitutionals and news time on ads. It's rote at this point. All right, this comes from, these next couple of stories are going to be all tied together. This comes from The Wrap, first of all. Written by Tom Gear. Universal's Trolls World Tour does nearly $100 million in the first 3 weeks of VOD rentals. Okay, so obviously we can't go out and do anything. So distributors have been releasing movies digitally for $20 per watch. And apparently, this is what I learned from Andy Daly. He was on comedian and TV's Andy Daly. He was on Never Not Funny, the podcast, and he said that his kids rented Trolls World Tour 3 times. Or excuse me, twice, and they tried it for a 3rd time, but he realized that he had a $40 charge. So they watched it once, and then the next day they watched it again. And then he realized he had a $40 charge, and his daughter tried to rent it again. He said no more. So apparently these $20 rentals are one and done thing. Trolls World Tour is really, and the rest, The Hunt, The Invisible Man, they're all released digitally. $20 per watch. Trolls World Tour made $100 million in these rental fees from its April 10th debut. So it's now April 30th. So let's take away 2 days. So in roughly in 18 days, take away 2 days, it's 20 days. Roughly 18 days. That was 5 million rentals, roughly 5 million rentals, and that's $100 million in digital rental fees. Which means, this is how they did their math. They said that Trolls World Tour has produced $77 million in revenue. That's more than the original 2016 movie did for the studio. The original had a budget of $125 million, and it only grossed $153.7 million domestically and $346.9 million worldwide. Trolls World Tour was apparently made for $90 million, which how did you take away and make? I don't understand. This movie looks bigger. Good. Amazing. But now, Trolls World Tour is doing way better than the original movie has ever done. Ever. And it's on track to continue to do well. So now, NBC Universal is saying, this is pretty good for PVOD, which is paid video on demand. The CEO, Jeff Shell, told Wall Street Journal, as soon as theaters reopen, we expect to release movies on both formats, which put a damper on the plans of theaters. So with Universal mulling that, this next story comes from The Wrap again. This is written by Jeremy Fuster this time. AMC is saying, hey, if you release on digital, we're not going to release your movies, period. We're not going to carry your movies, period. AMC is obviously one of the... oh my God. This story yesterday was freaking free. This is what I was afraid of. This is why I hate reading The Wrap. Because this bull crap, there's a freaking pop-up. Let me show you. You read the story and then a pop-up happens. Okay. AMC is saying they won't carry the story. I want to change that link because this is ridiculous. Then the NBCU boss comes back and says, "Hey, listen. It was just it's gonna be complimentary. People are gonna want to stay home and they're going to go see the movies." This next one comes from THR, the Hollywood Reporter, which doesn't have any pop-ups. NBCU CEO addresses Trolls theatrical window controversy, calls premium VOD complimentary. So Jeff Shell comes back and he's essentially saying, listen, we can do both. Shell told analysts that a majority of movies are currently being consumed at home, whether people like that or not, and it was, quote, not realistic to expect that change that right now, even though he said he expects theatrical is, quote, someday again going to be a central element of our business, adding that, quote, is how people make their movies and how they expect the movies to be seen. Oof. Okay. I mean, So it's difficult to really gauge how movies are doing because even all right, so let's say snap of the fingers by September everything is fine and the Oscars earlier today or yesterday even said that movies not released in theaters are going to have a chance to win an Oscar, to be put up for Oscar nominations. But you've had to had a plan for a theatrical release prior to the pandemic happening. But let's say snap of fingers in September, everything's fine. Even if people are, even if some of the nation says, all right, well, we'll stay inside, but the other 80% is out there, doing their work and excuse me, going to movie theaters and going to restaurants and stuff, but most importantly, and going playing outside, but most importantly, going to movie theaters. That doesn't mean that people are going to sit home and watch these movies. Like if James Bond doesn't come out in theaters, I mean, obviously people are going to watch it, but it's not going to be. I think it's not going to be as big as MGM wants it to be. Whoever distributes it. I think Universal might be distributing. No. Whoever wants it. Or like Fast and Furious 9, when that comes out next year. It's not going to be as big as you want it to be. It's not going to make the $1 billion that Fast and Furious 9 should make. It's an insane notion to say PVOD is going to be, I mean, obviously, yeah, it can be the future, but not at this point. Because we're at a point where even if movie theater ticket sales are declining year over year, it's still the most optimal way to watch a film. I mean, that being said, movies obviously on Netflix or Hulu or Amazon, they come out and they can do gangbusters. You can have, what's a popular, To All the Boys I've Loved Before. That movie can do so well, but that is for a certain sect of people who like rom-coms, people who like female protagonists, people who like, this and that versus, the entire world who's going to go see Black Panther 2 or Spider-Man Come Home, Far From Home. I watched that movie 2 weeks ago. I don't know if I talked about this. I thought it was fine. Too jokey for me. I can't, there needs to be a balance between any superhero movies with jokes and like seriousness. And I know Spider-Man's more of like the jokier type, but it just bothered me. Like how many jokes were coming at you. I mean, and some of them are funny. I'm not gonna discount that. Anyway, neither here nor there. I like that movie. Tom Holland's still the worst Spider-Man. I'm just joking. I was joking. He's up there. So what happens to the theatrical experience? This is from the article, the THR article. The National Association of Theater Owners responded by saying the outcome should not be interpreted as a sign of, quote, new normal for Hollywood. Quote, Universal does not have a reason to use unusual circumstances in an unprecedented environment as a springboard to bypass true theatrical releases, said NATO President and CEO John Fithian. The NATO is basically AMC, Regal, United Artists, Landmark Theaters, all the theaters, together. It's essentially their union. Fithian also said, we are confident that when theaters reopen, studios will continue to benefit from the global theatrical box office, followed by traditional home release. I can't imagine that Onward for Disney Plus did anything sort of well, because it didn't do well in theaters because it was only out for a week. Then they released it on Disney Plus a couple weeks later. I can't imagine that movie, made any money back for them. And even though I didn't like it, it's still a Pixar movie, and it still should have made buku dolores. It should have made $800 million in the box office. I mean, this is what I was thinking today. Your kids are inside. Obviously, you're going to want to entertain them, and obviously, you're going to want to drop $20 to watch this movie. If you have a family of four, traditional, white picket fence, 2 Aryan children. 2 Aryan children. That's a better title than the last one. 2 Aryan children to watch Trolls World Tour. Of course, Trolls World Tour did well. That's what you want. Hold on, I gotta press the button again to start the stupid camera up. back. We're back. Anyway, that's what I mean. It just yeah, like the NATO president said, you're using these unusual circumstances to try to sway that this is the better way of releasing movies, because it's not. It's not. Let's just get it through your thick head, your thick skull. You know what? Today is Thursday, and it is the Comcast earnings call for the first quarter of the year. I wonder how they did. Comcast owns NBC, or NBC Universal owns Universal Comcast company. Comcast owns NBCU, I believe. Oh, and then they're talking about how Peacock is coming in July, and all Comcast customers will get Peacock if you have Comcast, I believe, the cable, I don't know, or the internet. And there's one more part to this. So they said it was complimentary. There's a column here on Variety written by Rebecca Rubin and Brent Lang. Excuse me. Does anyone win in the AMC theaters fight with Universal Pictures? And it's not just AMC. I believe Regal jumped in to this as well. It is so. Let's take a look at this from both perspectives, just like we did for the Alf Clausen Simpsons versus Simpsons thing, Simpsons producers thing. Movie theaters were already doing poorly. Like I said, ticket sales down year over year, right? But in that sense, movies like a Disney movie, like a Marvel Endgame, Avengers Endgame, like an Avengers Endgame, do insanely well. And even if the last Star Wars, even if a movie theater isn't the only place to see it, people are still going to do that. Because right now during the pandemic, nobody's going to cram into your home. Like I think one of the issues is, besides the non-theatrical releases, I think that the companies are thinking that people are going to pirate the movie more easily, which is a huge worry, which I understand that one. But B, they're going to just throw parties and say, everybody come over, we can watch the new Jackass together, as if that's going to happen, which I don't think that will. But again, it would be smart. That's because that's how people do pay-per-view. The last boxing match I watched in pay-per-view, about 5-6 years ago, I had to pay $20, and I actually paid for another one of my friends. So I paid $40 to watch pay-per-view at a friend's house, and we watched the fight. We watched the match. It went from 10 to midnight, and then that was it. What was the return on investment on that? Nothing. So do they think that people are going to? I don't know. Are people going to have these parties anyway? But this is a good piece too. AMC apparently, perhaps this comes from an AMC head. I don't know his name. I'm looking for his name. His name, AMC CEO Adam Aron, suggests that the AMC would cut ties with any studio, quote, contemplating a wholesale change to the status quo. This is kind of like how Khan, hold on, let me jump to Cineworld, the owner of Regal Entertainment, took a less radical stance, barring anything that threatens to disrupt the way movies traditionally arrive in theaters, but stopping short of a total ban of Universal titles. Yes. Anyway, this is kind of like how Cannes Film Festival was saying, years ago when Oakjaw was coming out, I believe in 2016 on Netflix, when Netflix was going to enter it into the competition, but they hadn't thought about they didn't want to put it in theaters. Cannes said, it was a whole kerfuffle, and then Cannes eventually they recanted on that, and they said, okay, we'll accept this one, but next year. And then they changed the rules the next day. It has to be in theaters for, I believe, 17 weeks or some absurdly long amount of time for it to be considered to be considered to be put in the Cannes Film Festival. And that goes for every other film festival too, I believe, for most of them. My doctor keeps emailing me and it's all coronavirus updates and truly annoying. I think I'm getting a text. No, it's a coronavirus update. Who am I kidding? No one texts me. Some theater owners were rattled. This is from the piece on Variety, by what felt like a lack of solidarity from Universal at a time when their business is in a free fall and they're unable to generate any income. Roughly 150,000 cinema workers across the country have been furloughed or laid off, and many exhibitors are worried that they won't be to go back to making money anytime soon. They'll be able to go back to making money, which is true. The Arts Theater that is near me is owned by Landmark, which I thought it was locally owned, but thank God it's not, because that would have been sad if they couldn't come back. And all of the landmarks are closed, so this theater is closed by me. And AMC, even though Georgia's governor said yes, we can open up, AMC is still closed, and it just it's tough. It was a hard hit industry, and I understand everything else was hit very hard. Tyson is talking about how they need to shut down plants because it's tough working in those conditions with all the meat around, and we're gonna have a meat shortage and all this stuff. And farmers and farms are destroying crops because they can't sell it all, or they can't give it all away to the companies. But in terms of the entertainment industry, I believe that movie theaters are hit the hardest. Music, if I was inclined, I could come into my office here and I can just, if I had the equipment, I could just poop out a song. I could, do the thing, and then that would be that. And then I could put it on Spotify and make the money. Well, not Spotify, but I could put together a record, make money, and then that'd be that. Late night, you can sit down with an iPhone and you can and Zoom record conversations, and then that can be your entire show. For movies, for cartoons, you can The Simpsons, Family Guy, every cartoon that's ever going to come out, you can make that stuff at home. For movies, it's tough because you got a crew of 100 people and everyone's got to be in close contact with one another, and you can't do it from home. And if you try, you look foolish. But then that bleeds into who's distributing this and who's doing what, like who's showing the movies. I mean, yeah, you can watch Netflix at home, but the experience is at AMC. It's at Regal, Cinemark, Landmark, all those places. So there you go. All right. I mean, nothing we can do about that. Very tough spot. You got to see where's Universal coming from. They're coming from a standpoint of, we have these movies. We can't just sit back, and we have the means of putting them out and praying people will pay for them. But then looking from the other end, AMC Regal, this is a huge part. No one goes to the movie theater. Like, there's a the movie theaters with restaurants in them, the ones where you can eat at your seat, and then also they typically have a bar. They typically have like a bar restaurant area. The one, I used to live in the suburbs in Roswell, Georgia, and there was a movie theater near the more expensive side of town. Oh God, what was it? A movie It wasn't a movie tavern. Let's say it was a movie tavern, because it probably was a movie tavern. And it was a fairly new development, but it had been there for like 6 years by the time, or 5 years by the time I left. But it was, but there's a huge area where you can just sit down, and the bar, and there'll be like waiters waiting on you. And I just think, and there's food in the area too. Like, there's not local places, but just your chains. And I just think, who would go, you know what? I don't want Five Guys. I'm not feeling Starbucks or Smoothie King. I don't want Greek. I don't want Checkers. And there's a Checkers up there too, I believe. like the last Checkers in Georgia. But there, I want to eat at this movie tavern. Let's go get a beer and get some wings, and let's just hang out at the movie tavern. You're gonna go see a movie? No, I'm not gonna go see a movie. I just want to eat a dinner at the movie tavern. Like, movies are meant to movie theaters are for movies. They're not for food. They're not for anything else. And when you're Universal, you're saying, hey, we're not going to release, Trolls 3 trolling again in theaters, or you're going to do it hand in hand with paid video on demand. Then you're making a fool of where you came from, of movie theaters. And so I've said making a fool twice, and I don't feel comfortable saying that. I've been listening to a lot of Doughboys. All right, listen. 47 minutes. Listen, if you like what you heard here, and I don't know why you would, head on over to a website, cplscomedy.com, where there are so many great interviews with your favorite comedians like Larry the Cable Guy, Jimmy Pardo, Maria Bamford. It flips. Don't worry. It flips. If you're watching the video, you saw me slap my laptop multiple times and the screen just fell backwards by itself. Maria Bamford, Craig Ferguson, the Sklar brothers, Dan Van Kirk, just so many of your Jen Kirkman twice, Emma Willman twice, so many of your favorite comedians. Hopefully more. I'm going to go ahead and say this because I don't think I'm going to reach this goal, but at the beginning of the year, I said I hope to do, this is me coming off the high of Craig Ferguson. I said, all right, you know what? I'm going to do 50 interviews with with 50 comedians that I know. And if I can't, and if they don't have like a lot of followers or a big career move, then I'm just not going to interview them. And I was doing well. I was getting an interview basically every couple of weeks. And then the pandemic hit and I stopped getting interviews. With the exception of one that will be coming out next week at this point, around this time. Okay, so if you like that, if you like this show, if you want to see a video version of the show, youtube.com/cplscomedy. I urge you to. It's fun. Just put it on the background when you're, I don't know what people do at home now. Just put it on the background. It'll be fun. And rate, review, subscribe. Wherever you get your podcast. What else? Follow us on Instagram and Twitter at Simplest Comedy. Follow me on Instagram and Twitter at Chad Black White. Like us on Facebook. That is it for the Constitutionals podcast. And I'm going to wrap this up by unlocking my iPad and playing the outro song. Thank you and good night.